What is up, Jamily? This is Jamiro Fan 2000 here, and I'm here with the answer video for the first episode of Ask Jamiro, where I asked everybody in the online Jamily to ask their JamiroQuai related questions. So let's get into the first questions. I'm going to be handling these questions in blocks of social media platforms that I got these questions, but first off, let me preface this video by saying thank you to everybody that decided to take in their own time to submit questions for the first episode of Ask Jamiro. So let's get into the first questions, which will be from the JamiroQuai subreddit. First question, of course, is from DragonAsh200 from Reddit, and it said basically, how did JK manage to get such a complex band together with the initial release of When You Gonna Learn? Any tips for young musicians, composers out there would be much appreciated. First off, thank you, DragonAsh, for that question. But you look at the pool of talent that was in England at that time in the early 90s, and it was one of the rare times in British history where, or at least British music history, where it was a multi-ethnic community in England at that time, and JK had a lot of friends from the b-boy scene to who were basically some of his friends from the neighborhood, where he basically sourced, well, of course JK was a good sponge back then, but he sourced a lot of his musical inspiration from a lot of artists, and not to mention that part of England did have a lot of very talented musicians around that JK could pretty much collaborate with, and the early JamiroQuai really was a lot of a collaborative effort more than what band members brought to the table for JamiroQuai. But as I said, JK had an amazing pool of musical talent that he could go and talk to or get interested in whatever music projects that he was interested in doing at that early time. And again, thank you, DragonAsh200, for that question. Now on to the second question from Reddit, and this one, of course, is from ShiloTCat from the JamiroQuai subreddit. They ask, curious when Toby passed away, JamiroQuai posted a snippet video of his spectacular keyboard work of Music of the Mind. Ever since I have searched the internet trying to find this video in its entirety. Do you have any idea where I can view this? Secondly, thank you for the question, TCat. I did a little bit of digging myself. I did look back on the JamiroQuai Twitter feed and Instagram feeds trying to find that video that you mentioned. But sadly, I wasn't able to find any reference of that video, but I do recollect, I did check the official JamiroQuai Facebook page looking for that video, but they didn't have it posted. But whenever JamiroQuai official, at least the social media, were talking about Toby, they did do a lot of video referencing back to his work of the live performances during JamiroQuai's first major tour, of course, which was in the country of Japan. And Toby Smith was one of the prominent musicians in a lot of those performances, so I highly suggest you go back and check out Club Cheetah 1993, JamiroQuai's performance in Japan. The whole gig is currently available on YouTube, and if you want to check it out, in your own time, I'll be sure to put a link down in the description of this first answer video of Ask Jamiro, so for your early convenience. But if you go back and watch those Japanese tour performances, specifically 1993 Club Cheetah, and of course 1994 at the Garden Arena in Japan, Toby Smith had a lot of amazing solos and work in those early videos. So let's move on to the questions from my fellow Jamily on YouTube. Now on to the questions from my fellow Jamily for this first episode, this first answer video of the Ask Jamiro from YouTube. My first question comes from UnoriginalContent on YouTube. Thank you again for this question. A while back you made a video about physical bootlegs you had. Have you gotten any others since that video? Also, what's your least favorite era in terms of concerts? Very loaded question, but thank you, UnoriginalContent, for this question. Yeah, I did do a video about probably about a year ago, 2 years ago, talking about the bootlegs. It was part of my Jamiro's Collection playlist here on YouTube. I have not had the time or the free time to go and actually buy any more bootlegs. If you're wondering where I got those original bootlegs, I actually had a music friend when I was in the restaurant industry who actually got me those bootlegs, who said he could hook me up with some JamiroQuai bootlegs, so he got me Funky Paradise and the other bootleg. I haven't had a chance to get any, but a majority of the bootlegs that I have collected are mostly digital, because a lot of early fan sites in the early 2000s and late 90s were putting up full JamiroQuai bootlegs from the early days, specifically from 1993 to probably 2000, up for free download. So I do have a lot of digital bootlegs rather than physical. And my favorite era in terms of concerts, it's going to be kind of a tie between the Immersing Planet Earth era from 1993 to early 1994, and of course the Return of the Space Cowboy era from 1994 to 1995. Both of those eras had probably some of the best live performances from JamiroQuai, and I can't think of any better better periods, to be honest, other than the Automaton era, which I've been following implicitly for literally 3 years. But again, thank you for the question on original content. Let's get on to the second question, which is from a good friend of mine from the JamiroQuai subreddit and of course on YouTube, my good friend Electricmaster, and his question is basically this. This is my question. 2 years ago, your list of favorite songs for each album were as follows: Mercy on Planet Earth, Music of the Mind, Return of the Space Cowboy, Just Another Story, Traveling Without Moving, Function, Synchronize, Where Do We Go From Here, A Funk Odyssey, Main Vein, Dynamite, Feels Just Like It Should, Rock Dust Light Star, two completely different things, Automaton, Hot Property. Has this changed 2 years on, if indeed it has? Very good question, Electricmaster. Thank you again for your question. My preferences of my favorite song per album does change, but after 2 years of the Automaton era, specifically for Automaton, I kind of gone away from Hot Property and have you've probably seen on my social media my fascination with Vitamin. It's probably the only song that's really changed on that list that you mentioned of my favorite songs per album. I pretty much only made a change for Automaton because Vitamin's really grown on me, because it's just an amazing song. Not to mention it's probably one of the most complex compositional songs on JamiroQuai's 2017 album of Automaton. And again, thank you Electricmaster and Original Content for your questions on YouTube. So let's move on finally to questions from the Jamily on Facebook. And finally, to the questions for this first answer video of Ask Jamiro from my friends of the Jamily on Facebook. And I did decide a little bit later on in this 2 weeks of giving people a chance to ask questions to open up the question field to my fellow Jamily on Facebook. So let's get to those few questions that I got from Facebook to cap off this first episode of Ask Jamiro in this answers video. The first question is from my good friend Andrea from Facebook saying, can I ask here, what do you think, bro? Have they begun work on album 9? Well, I have been reporting pretty much ad nauseum here on my channel that JamiroQuai have had studio time working on the 9th JamiroQuai album. Now, for an official confirmation, you might want to ask the band members of JamiroQuai whenever they have those sparse moments on their social media to be able to answer inquiries from the Jamily about where the status of the 9th JamiroQuai album is. Now, I know I probably will get an indication that they have been working on new content if more copyright listings pop up on the usual worldwide music copyright repertories, and I have seen over the last 2 years a few, probably up to 5-6 new songs notations starting to appear on worldwide copyright repertories all around the world, ranging from Canada to Europe, mostly European nations like Germany, France, and of course England. And I've seen them pop up on Australian repertories too. But until the band decides to actually acknowledge it, the only acknowledgement we really have of a band member on social media saying that the 9th album is in the works is, of course, Matt Johnson did put out an Instagram talking about how he was looking forward to making new JamiroQuai music in 2020, respectively. So, that's pretty much the only confirmation that we have so far, but thank you again, Andrea, on Facebook for your question. Let's move on to the second question from Facebook, which, of course, is from Nolan. Whatever happened to the Jammy instrumentals, and will they ever make a comeback? Very good question, but we did get a return of JamiroQuai doing instrumentals in the Automaton era, which, of course, ran from 2017 to 2020. But, of course, this wasn't an instrumental that was released wide open. It wasn't a B-side. It wasn't released, but it was released as intro music during the Automaton tour, starting in July of 2018, starting at Montreux. It, of course, was confirmed by Matt Johnson in a subsequent Instagram post that the song Street Fighter, which was, of course, a Let's Over instrumental from the Automaton era, was being played as intro music right before the band would come out on stage and perform during the 2018 through 2019 tour. So JamiroQuai kind of making a little bit of their return to doing instrumentals, at least in a released sense. So hopefully with the 9th JamiroQuai album, which hopefully will be coming out very, very soon, hopefully in the next 2-3 years, how much time they are ahead on their studio sessions and the creating process, so got to bear with the band. I'm sure instrumentals will come back very, very soon. And again, thank you, Nolan, for your question on Facebook. And now the last question I'm going to answer in this first answer video of Ask Jamiro is going to be kind of a consolidation of two questions. And they were basically, the main question was, of course, from Paula from Facebook, asking when JamiroQuai would be returning to Perth in Western Australia. Now, like I said, I got repeated questions asking about geographically where JamiroQuai would be returning on tour. But there's a lot of fans in Australia who really want JamiroQuai to come back, and JamiroQuai hasn't been back to Australia probably since 2011, 2012. 2010. But I am sure that JamiroQuai, given the circumstances in the world, where the world is at that point in the future, once the 9th album is completed and been mixed, they will be doing a wide open tour of the world. And given that the band's getting older and touring habits have changed and the world can change, it's all about how the world's economy is at the time. So if JamiroQuai can make a profit on the tour, I'm sure they will be touring all around the world in their next tour. But for if you look at the Automaton era in close proximity, they kind of did a staggered tour schedule, at least for that 3 years. They kind of like did Latin America 1 year, and then they concentrated Europe the next year, and then they came back to the United States for the first time in literally 13 years. So some bands have the longevity to tour everywhere in 1 to 2 years, but when it comes to JamiroQuai and the amount of art, the amount of band members, and the production, and the travel, and the transportation, you got to take that all into consideration when you think about JamiroQuai going on tour, and especially with the band getting older and having different habits, and hopefully they're being more creative. We'll see. It's a wait and see process with JamiroQuai on tour. But again, this is my answer video for my first episode of Ask Jamiro. I'd like to thank everybody of the Jamily who asked questions on Reddit, Facebook, and YouTube. I really enjoyed answering your questions, and I hope I answered them very well. And I'll hopefully be doing an episode 2 of Ask Jamiro, hopefully in the month of April of 2020. So stay up to date. Be sure to ding the bell on your YouTube to stay up to date with all the latest new content that comes out of the Jamiro Fan 2000 YouTube channel. And I'll be sure to alert you on my phone. I'll be sure to alert you on my social media when I am working on another episode of Ask Jamiro. But again, thank you, everybody, for your questions. I hope I answered them very well. And be sure to like and subscribe and share this video on your social media where you can. It really helps me out, and it helps get more members of the Jamily aware of all my content here on YouTube. And as always, this is Jamiro Fan 2000, and I'll see you again really soon with more JamiroQuai related content here on the Jamiro Fan 2000 YouTube channel. Bye-bye, everybody.